Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Douglas Johnson, and I am a certified yoga teacher at the advanced 500-hour level. I am also a musician, kirtan artist, and an ordained minister. And today I wanted to talk about allowing stillness and peace. Before I get into that topic, though, I did want to thank the community that makes these talks possible, and those are my patrons over on Patreon. So this is really a community effort. Um, they really make these talks possible, allow me to share this without any kind of paywall. And the intention, my intention, and the intention of this community is that these talks are helpful. So if you'd like to join that community, please check out the links below. All right, so allowing stillness and space. This is a theme that I've been exploring quite a bit lately. It's not the first time in my life or my spiritual journey that I have had to embrace and explore stillness and peace. When before I became a professional yoga teacher, I went through a sort of a dark night experience. And during that period, I found myself called to be very still, and I was in a very precarious situation. Um, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't really have a lot of prospects. I really had no idea what the future was going to bring. And my ego was telling me to go out and look for work and freak out and do all the fearful things. But something inside of me told me to trust and to be still. And it was after that period that I was put on the sort of track that I've been on for the last, I don't even know how many years it's been, this whole phase of my life of teaching yoga and spirituality uh, as a profession is what came, the fruit of that stillness. That's the way I see it. That's the way I experienced it. And I find myself in a similar situation now where there is a sense of unknown, a sense of I don't really know what is next or what is being asked of me. And as usual, my ego is wants me to do a bunch of things. It is afraid of that space and that stillness and that potential. If you think of a blank canvas for an artist, or you think of a blank page for a writer, that canvas and that page, while it is pure potential, anything could be painted on that canvas before you start. You could write anything on that page. It could be the next great novel, a beautiful poem, or just drivel. And we really don't know until we put pen to paper and begin. And I find that it's the same with these periods, like the one I'm going through now, where there's really a big question mark or space of what is the next thing that I'm being called to do. And I don't have the answer. And I guess I'm here to share that that's okay in my perspective. I think that so often we are in a rush to have the answers or to know. And to be honest, I don't know if this period of stillness and silence will be productive or not. I don't know what will come of it. And there is a part of me that is afraid of that. And that's what I wanted to share, because if you listen to this channel, then there's a good chance that you may be on a similar journey and had similar experiences. The spirituality that I'm interested in, that I share, that I talk about, in a sense, is it isn't really for the faint of heart. There, it isn't about neat little formulas. And I'm trained in yoga, and I'm trained to be able to offer a lot of techniques for people, and I appreciate those, and they are very powerful, and they can be useful, and they can be the right thing at the right time. But I also, my own personal experience and from guiding others, I know that there can be a lot of uncertainty. And what I'm here to say is I think at a certain point in a certain stage in spiritual growth, we have to embrace that. We have to allow that. We have to make space or hold space for that. Again, what my ego wants to do right now is fill that space. It wants to be certain. It wants to know what the next thing is. It wants to fill in that gap. Currently, what I'm going through is just not feeling very inspired or called to do many of the things that I've been doing throughout the year. Um, Earlier in the year, I felt very inspired and called to do certain things. And so I did those things. Um, but lately, the last few weeks or maybe month, I've been feeling less and less inspiration. And I like that word inspiration because it means in spirit, right? Inspire, in spirit. That's what that word comes from. So when we are inspired, it means spirit is moving us, it is inspiring us toward action. And my life has been an exploration of that, of can I live my life and survive in this modern world being motivated by spirit? That's what I've tried to explore, either intentionally or unintentionally. I don't even know if there's anything else I can do at this point. And it's scary. And I think a lot of people want to believe that if they follow a spiritual path, that somehow that will lead them to some kind of great success or triumph or fame. That's definitely not been my experience. I live a rather humble life. What I can say is that it's led me to more fulfillment and joy and peace and connection than I knew was possible. So I have a lot of faith because of my experience with allowing that. And so that's just something that I wanted to share with you, that sometimes the best thing we can do is not to do anything at all, not to fix the problem, not to fill the space, not to answer the question, but just allow ourselves to sit with it. And I have the good fortune and luxury. Again, I do not, I live very, very humbly. Trust me, much more humbly than most people I know. But there is a roof over my head. I do have high speed internet. There's food in the fridge. There's money in the bank. So while there are many things that I do without, I'm in no danger, at least right now, of being in physical harm. And when I say there are things I do without, I mean that sincerely. There are many things that many people would consider just um, something they have to have in order to survive in modern day America. And I do without some of those things. And I do that very consciously. It's just the choices that I make, and I'm comfortable with those choices. But it is definitely doing without certain creature comforts or certain things that most people take for granted. So, anyway, everybody, maybe you come to this channel and you listen to my talks because you think I have answers for things. That's not really the way that I see it. I'm always trying to share to be helpful. And I feel the longer that I'm on this path of awakeness and walking through the world with awakeness, the less I feel that I really have any answers for anybody. Um, I think one of the things that's happened is just over the years, I've become very comfortable with not knowing the answers. And that's what this period is right now for me, a period of this sort of inspiration that has been driving me has dried up or it's taking a pause. This is, of course, winter when I'm recording this, and wintertime is a time for respite, for um, going inward, for being still. It's a great time to be still and to know. And so I feel that that's what I'm being called to do now. So there are periods where if you are listening to spirit, there are periods where spirit will call you into the world and to take action. And then there will be periods where spirit will call you inward and ask you to be more still. And that's this period here is that for me. And what's interesting again is that there really is no sense of what's on the other end of that. The only real reassurance I have is my past experience with doing this, of surrendering, letting go and letting God, and being still and knowing, and emerging from these periods of stillness with newfound inspiration. But that is how I see it, and this is what I would encourage you to do if you find yourself in a similar situation, either now or in the future, is I do believe that the inspiration that comes out of these periods is very poignant. It's very powerful. And it wouldn't necessarily be so if we didn't give ourselves that time to rest. I think it's part of a more of a larger universal um, truth, if you will. Truth may not be the right word for it, but if we look at our lives, we have periods of daylight activity, and then we have periods of sleep and rest. And the entire animal kingdom sleeps. So every animal needs this period of stillness. Now, that's on a daily scale. We go through that. But what I found is this also happens in other time frames. So if we look at the week, we might have our work week, and then we might have the weekend where this is an opportunity for us to rest. And then we might find in larger time frames as well. For instance, annually, the Taoists for sure would say this time of year is a time for stillness and to be more quiet and to introspect, not to be so active outwardly. But then also in terms of our lives. So, what's interesting to me is I just recently, last year, went through a sort of dark night of the soul. And while I feel that I've very much returned to a renewed um, sense of my baseline that I had prior to the dark night, one of the characteristics I think of my awakening and many other people's awakening is whereas before your awakening, you may have been prone toward a kind of low level of depression and anxiety, or even a high level of depression and anxiety. And I certainly had experienced that. And then since then, I don't experience that. In for the most part, I feel really inspired by life and excited about life and the mystery of it, and um, really engaged with life in a way that I hadn't experienced before, maybe only as a young child, but as an adult, I hadn't really experienced that. And that is very consistent. So that's why those periods where you don't feel that, they really stand out, and especially a long period like I had with my dark night. But there is a sense that maybe now is a time where the dark night has passed, but perhaps there is something new, a new phase or a new stage or a new inspiration wants to be born or birthed. I can't say for sure. Again, that's part of what's interesting about this process and why I wanted to share it with you, is there really isn't any knowing on my part. There's just what we might call faith, that in the past I have gone through periods like this, and not only have I emerged um, okay, I have emerged renewed, re-inspired, set on a new path. And that is at least a possibility that I feel that may come out of this period. So anyway, everyone, I just wanted to share that with you, and perhaps this will be helpful for someone who's going through a similar situation or will go through a similar situation in the future. And right now, I like to always share what is sort of going on in my life, or what is most relevant, what is coming up with um, people I work with in my community spiritually. So I always like to take from what feels really, really relevant at the moment, whether that is a passage from a spiritual text that is really speaking to me at the moment, or like right now, what is happening. I really feel drawn toward just allowing the stillness. This is in such contrast to what our culture encourages us to do. Our culture encourages us to hustle, to be more productive. We are very quickly shamed for not being productive, not making money, um, not contributing something. But I guess what I'm here to say is I think there is spiritual value in that. Now, I don't want this to be used for spiritual bypassing and an excuse to be lazy, or an excuse to avoid life and engagement. For me, these periods are temporary and necessary, and I guess that's what I'm trying to share. And how long is temporary, I don't honestly know. There are teachers, spiritual teachers, and people who have lived very spiritual lives, and they have gone into seclusion, or they will take vows of silence, and sometimes that will last many years. Um, I'm not taking a vow of silence. I am not really consciously saying, oh, I want to be silent or I want to be still. I just feel that call. I feel that energy. As much as before I felt inspired to do certain things, right now I feel inspired not to allow stillness and silence. So, anyway, I really hope that this is helpful. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments if you'd like to share your experience. And until next time, namaste and have a beautiful, beautiful day.